Hey, John here. Let's look at a project template. How do these things work? We've created new projects. We've opened up existing projects with these buttons here. This middle one here, by now you must have clicked it and looked around in here. Some of you probably even tried using it and see what you find. This is kind of neat. What it does is it takes, for all intents and purposes, an existing project that has been declared as a template, and it makes a copy of that project. So this one right here, what's this guy do? You pick one of these icons, you see a little description of the project down here. All right, this one here I was poking around with earlier. This is the one I'm familiar with right now. Let's say I wanted to make, an Arduino Uno board, or I want to make a Raspberry board, one of these daughter cards, one of the hats, shields, whatever. These are daughter cards. Now, you could look up the dimensions of the thing and where the mounting holes are supposed to be and where you're supposed to put the connectors in the slot for the ribbon cables for the camera and the display and all that fun stuff. Or luckily, someone else has done all the work for you and created a template and gave it to the KiCad guys and said, hey, distribute this thing with KiCad so people can use it. That's what this one is. That's what all these are, really. These system templates, these just come with the distribution of KiCad. So this is kind of nifty. Let's look at this one here. So you pick the one you want and you hit OK. Let's take note before we do that. This path down here tells you the path within which KiCad has used to go find all of these templates. All right, and if you go look at the doc for KiCad and how it works, you can create your own templates, and we'll do that in a minute. But remember where they are, okay? User share KiCad template, whatever that is on your system, look down there, because what we're going to do when we create our own, we're going to go poke around down here and look and see what these ones are and get some clues. Spoiler alert, the doc over in KiCad on how to do this is not entirely correct, okay? There's some minor flaws in their documentation. So we're going to go steal some hints out of this as we go. All right, so, okay, fine. I'm going to create a new project, and I'm going to have, hey, I don't want to have to do it all from scratch, so I'm going to start with something. So what am I going to call this one? Let's make it 20, where are we at? 55 Pi hat demo, all right? And I've got create a new directory for this project clicked down here, right? This is all fine and dandy. So what did I do? I created a new project, and in my project's GitHub directory, as you might recognize from my prior videos, is where I put all my stuff, and there is the directory that it created for a new project. This is just like creating a new project, an empty one, but what it really does is it copies a bunch of files from the template directory area that I was just saying. Remember this, because we're going to look around over there in a minute. So these files came in. What does it really mean? Well, it means that, first of all, it means that this is an old project from KiCad version 4. That's nice. Let's rescue it. It's okay. You'll see how to create your own in a minute. You probably won't really use these things anyhow. Okay, so here's the header for a Raspberry Pi, the 40-pin header. It's already in your schematic. They already create the mounting holes using the technique that I talked about before, where they actually make them parts in the schematic. And these things probably have footprints and sizes and every other fun thing. So that's the schematic that comes in already pre-done. So they're all labeled, and that's all nice. This is great, all right? Let's open up the PC board. All right, now they've done your board outline and placed all of the mounting holes and all this stuff, just like that little picture did on their page. This is a fantastic way to start a project. So all you need to do now is go lay out your schematic parts, connect them up to the pins, import your netlist. And yeah, this is a regular old project at this point, but you started with a leg up, right? Now, this is all fine and dandy. And if you go over to the Oshpark website, there's a web page. Let me see. I think I have it sitting down here somewhere. Here it is. That is a little bit out of date. I think I showed you this a long time ago in an earlier video. These two links are broken, and they would point to a template that you could use to create a new project that's pre-populated with all the settings needed for OshPark. And there's a 4 or 5-year-old thread in the KiCad forum that talks about these no longer existent templates and that are of no value to somebody using KiCad 5. So anyway, we have been typing this stuff in by hand, which is not a really big deal. You can certainly create your own OshPark template, so let's look at how to do that now. So before we get into creating our own, let's look at where we're going and what has to happen. This window down here, I've already moved into the directory that is set right here in the KiCad preferences, the paths in the main project manager window, not the schematic editor and so on. That's this guy right here, okay? This points at where your the system templates are that came with the distribution. We'll play around with this thing down here for our own templates. This thing came from the distribution set to a path that doesn't even exist on my laptop here. So not sure what they were smoking when they put that in there as a default. But just FYI, that's how this is all connected together, which to me is how you understand everything. As long as you know how it works and why it works, you can figure out how to use it. So this is what's going on. That directory has a bunch of these templates in it. We were just looking at this one down here. You have no real way of knowing that because it doesn't really tell you the directory when you're in that template chooser, which I think is a shortcoming of the template chooser app. But nonetheless, you can figure it out because if you go in here, you'll see these files and you can look at their sizes over here, match exactly the files over here. Plus, I looked at this earlier and figured it out. The direct giveaway is in here. This is what makes any old project that you have in KiCad into a template that you can use with their template manager to spawn new projects, okay? A meta directory within which you place an info HTML file and an icon ping file. Now the docs in the KiCad website for version 5.x claim that the only thing you need for a template is a meta directory and an info HTML file. That is technically true, but every time you go in there and open up the template chooser app like we just did, it complains that it can't find an icon ping file, which is very annoying. So their doc probably meant to say you want both of these things, all right? This file over here is an image file that is referred to in this info file. The info file is just a regular old web page of HTML that is presented in a rather primitive little browser that you saw in there. Where am I here? I'm on the cat. I got line wrap issues. Got an older version of Xterm here that's not doing my line wrapping nicely for me. Okay, so here is this info HTML file. Let's look at how this thing starts. It says the title, and this is key here. Title, Raspberry Pi, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's look over here at the chooser. Notice this says Raspberry right here. Here's the one that I chose. Okay? The doc says that the title here is the text that goes underneath the icon here. Well, they left out the part that said whoever parsed this title string probably doesn't know how to parse strings, because what they meant to say is that the first word in this title string would appear underneath this icon. And if you have one and only word in here, by the way, it gets confused and puts a lot of extra garbage down here. So again, the template system is a little primitive. It works, but these are some of the gotchas and caveats here. Okay, I'm just saying. For now, this is serviceable as long as you kind of keep your wits of where the potholes are in the highway to progress here, okay? So we're going to create a little HTML file, put it in a meta directory. We're going to fill in a title. I recommend strongly that it have at least 2 words in it. The first word will be appearing underneath your icon. You put any kind of junk you want in here, but don't get creative. You probably only want to put paragraphs, lists, and you can put an image link in here. This is the image link that refers to the board.ping, which you saw when I opened it up. If you click on here, that's this file right here, okay? Which is obviously a dump from the PC board viewer, because you just saw that when I opened up the PC board file there, okay? That's how this all fits together. And again, I'm in the system template area. I don't want to touch anything in here. These are not my files. If you look at the ownership, these are owned by root or your system admin or whatever your OS is going to do. These are the distribution files that come with KiCad. All right. You can look, don't touch is the way I like to think about that. All right. So here is the directory where I'm going to create my own mess. Okay. All right. So this is the Pi-Hat demo that I just created by using this template over here. All right, let's go off into a whole new area. I'm going to just make a new directory called X, and inside this X directory I'm going to create a project that I'm going to use as the basis for my own new template. All right, so how am I going to do that? I'm going to come over here. I'm going to create a new project, a new blank project right here by clicking. What am I got? A stuck window here? Come on, what's going on? Oh, I got to close this thing. All right, so let's click on create a new blank project, go into my home directory where I know I put that X directory. Come on, what's going on? Home X. Inside here, create a new directory for, I'm going to just call this thing like JB template 1. Just assume you're going to screw up the first one and throw it away anyway, so give it a meaningful name that really doesn't mean anything, right? This is an abstract template project. All right, so let's say I want any project based on this to use my new super coolly groovy awesome page layout file that we did in a previous video. Now if we do this, I probably shouldn't have done this. I get myself in trouble. If I create this and I go over to here and use my page layout that I invented on my own, it's unclear to me. In fact, it's probably not going to work if I give this to someone else unless they have that page layout file. So this might not be the best advice for shared projects, but on my own system, I may want to do this, okay? All right, so if I were to save this project right now, let's go ahead and do that. Control S, close it. Now I'm going to close everything to make sure that no one's got any files open that are not, saved yet and things like that. So I killed all of KiCad. Let's go into this directory and see what I got going on here. There's the schematic file, the project file, and the PC board file, okay? There's a backup and a cache library file sitting here. Now, when I create a template, I don't want to have garbage in there, so I'm going to remove this backup file. I could probably remove this too, but I might as well leave it there. All right, now it says in the doc that any project with a meta directory is a template. Okay, and in the meta you want to have an info.html file, right? HTML to end it. It has to have a head on it. Head. And the title should be the name under the icon. Let's call this one XYZ ABC, just so we know what's going on here. I claim the XYZ will be the thing that you'll see under the icon. So this is John's test template project. Yay. All right. Let's look and see what happens if we do what the doc says. All right. I'm going to create a new project from a template. Now, I can do a couple of different things here. I can go and change the path in the preferences and set the user template path to the directory where I put my templates, which is this X thingy right here. Why don't we go ahead and do that? This is what you probably want to do in the long term. Anyway, now I'm configuring our global configurations in KiCad, not project configurations, and that should make sense because I don't yet even have that project created. So the user template, all right, this thing, I can actually hit the little file over here and go find it if I want to. Go to my home directory, X. I don't want to go in the template directory. I want to go to X, the directory within which the templates are, because I'm going to need, a plurality of these things, right? This is just one of 50 that could be in there. So I'm going to hit open. Home Winans X, okay? Okay. And as you can see, here's a project directory that it will now find, and it will complain because it doesn't have an icon. Now you see this. Look at the details. Boo-hoo. I'm upset. I cannot find XJB template 1 meta icon ping. Okay, this is what I was talking about. We'll create a ping to shut this up. Even with that error warning that comes out in here, it doesn't matter. It's still working. And I suppose, in a way, one could argue info HTML is needed and the icon is not. So their doc isn't wrong. It's just very annoying. Okay, magically now we see XYZ over here. Remember, that's the title in this info HTML file. We so far don't have anything to indicate that it is in fact JB template 1. And in fact, we never will unless I put JB template 1 and a description of it in this HTML file itself. So if I click on what would be an icon over here, it dumps out the contents of that info file here, all right? So this is a template. It just doesn't have an image, okay? And it generates warnings and things, a little noisy, but this is a template. So I'm going to hit OK. Now it's going to say, you're creating a new project where you want to put your stuff, all right? I want to put it in my projects area under GitHub with all my other projects. Here's the Pi-Hat demo I just created a minute ago. I'm going to call this one 2056 dash, this is going to be an ABC template project. Okay. Because I'm going to delete it in a few minutes anyway. All right, fine. Now I just created a new project. If we open up the schematic, ta-da, you can see that this project was created based on that JB template 1, obviously stored up here, okay? So let's get rid of that other complaint. Let's stop everything and let's do another one now. Same template, same thing. I'm going to use GIMP. And I'm going to create an icon so that we shut up the error. I'm going to say new. I need it's 64 by 64 pixels. If you read the doc, that's the size it's supposed to be. You hit OK. You now have a canvas. I'm going to click this little sprayer thingy, and I'm going to spray red on there. And here's the icon for my project. Okay, I just made a file. In the newer releases of GIMP rather, you need to say export the file, and it saves it in the middle of nowhere. I want it to go into the meta template 1 meta directory, and I want it to be called icon. Oops. .ping. All right. Export it. Blah blah blah. Whatever it wants. Close this stuff. Get rid of everything. No, that's trying to save the metadata. Just get rid of all that junk. Okay. Now we've got an icon ping and an info HTML file. Let's edit our info HTML file again and put in here the fact that, where are we? This is called JB template 1, John's JB template 1 project. Okay, that's more useful so I can remember where the data came from. All right, let's fire KiCad back up again. And open up the, that's the old project. Pardon the fan noise in the background. That happens every now and then. You'll notice we didn't get any warnings this time when we fired it up about the missing icon. Well, there's our icon, and you can now see this tells me what I want to do. So I'm going to just do the same thing all over again. I'm in the GitHub directory again. I just made an ABC template project. I'm going to call this one 2057, blah, 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 blah. And now I have another new project, okay, based again on this template sitting here. Now, when KiCad makes a new project out of this template, what it literally does, and this is right out of their own doc, it copies any and every single file that comes out of the template directory as is, and it puts it where you say. So I'm going to project/GitHub, where I created these projects, okay? And you saw this earlier when I compared the Pi-Hat demo to the system template. Here's now this satif copy of this one. It copies every file in here verbatim over to here, number one. Number two, it skips the meta directory and its context. And number three, for every single file that is named after the project with the KiCad suffix stuff over here, it renames those files. Okay? Which is why these are all named 2057, dash project name, whatever, from here. That's all it's going to do. So if I create a file over here, remember I'm in the template in the right window here, called readme, and put blah in here, all right? And somebody comes along and says, hey, I want to make a new project based on this template over here. Okie dokie. And now I'm going to make a 2058 blah project. Oops, I don't illegal characters in there. And I hit save. Now let's see what happens. All right, that's the 2058 blah project. There better be a README file. Ta-da! So it copied this over. Now, because it did not start, the file name README did not start with the project name, it did not rename it. It moved it as is and did not rename it. Let's move this README file to jbtemplate1.readme.txt just for fun. And watch what happens if we do this one. I mean, this is all that's really going on here. They're just making copies. You can do all this by hand and just make your own copies of your files and rename them just the way I just described. And this is how the templating system works. 2059/blah2. And I'm talking while typing, so this is all right. Okay, create the directory. Everybody's happy. I'm in the blah project. Now there's a blah2. Surprise, surprise. There's my README text. So this is just a brain-dead file copy minus the meta and rename anything that looks like it's related to the KiCad project name accordingly. All right? That's all there is to these project templates. Now, because it's an entire project, as you saw with the Pi, and you can look and see with the Arduino project, this can have arbitrarily large amounts of schematic data in them, multi-sheet schematics, and all sorts of things. But because I chose to do something that might be kind of foolish by using my own personal page layout, and I referred it in the template, I'll bet anything that this schematic file here has a reference to my personal library, my page template, not the template, they call it a page layout file in here. So if I say grep on Unix, you've got this grep command, right? And I look to see what's going on in here. See where it says layouts? Remember, this is where I put my layout. Okay, my page layout. If I grep for the word layouts in all the files in my template directory, let's see if it shows up in there. Yes, it does. Okay, so what happens here is if I gave this to somebody else, I might have a problem. Now, this is true about all KiCad projects. All right, the page layout description file equals this huge thing, full path name. So what does that mean to me? You're free to do this for your own project templates, but if you give them to somebody else, you definitely don't want to do something like this. All right, I did this on purpose, right? Wink, wink, for the sake of demonstration. You may not want to use a custom local file for something in one of these projects that you're going to give to somebody else. All right, I'm just saying, if I did want to use my own custom layout in this template, what I would do is this. I would copy that page template and I would copy it to the template directory, okay? Which is this guy here now, right? Now, if I open up, remember the template is just a project in its own right. And you can open it up from the command line anytime by saying KiCad and give it a KiCad project name, all right? this will now open the project in this template directory, not one of the 27 copies that I've just made from it, right? So inside here, if I go back to my schematic and I go up here, and instead of choosing this file, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this file. That WKS file that has been copied into the current directory, and I should be able to find it by hitting browse, because if I hit browse, it opens up the current directory, which is where the project is and or where I started KiCad when I opened this project, which is all the same thing. So if I pick this file, it'll now say, look, it didn't come from somewhere far away. Do you want to use a relative path? And the answer is yes. We've seen this in some prior videos. Do you want to hard code this massive thing, or do you want to say /? Or I guess / is even optional if you want. It'll just say open this from the current directory where the project files go. And obviously that's what you want if you're going to give it to somebody else. So let me go ahead and do that. Hit save, close this thing down, shut everybody down. And now that we've edited this thing, grep, what's it called? Like JB, well, it'll be KiCad WKS. Should actually, this whole thing should appear somewhere in one of these files. And yes, it does. And now you can see that in the project description file for this template project, this worksheet for the page layout will go along with this template. All right, so let's go ahead and fire up KiCad again and open up the template chooser thingy and hit user templates. And I'm going to make yet another one from the same thing I made the other ones on. And I'm going to go to my projects directory over at GitHub, and I'm going to go to 2060, you know, blah, another one. So here's yet another project. This time you can see that there's this WKS file sitting in the middle of the project that I've just created, right? So where am I at here? I'm in the layouts. Let's go to projects, GitHub, which is where all my GitHub projects are. Here's the one that I just created. And we can look inside here and we can see again all the files that were copied over from the template over here that we keep tinkering with. All right. And because jb.kicad WKS does not start with jb-template1, it does not get renamed. And it got copied with everything else. So now when I open up the schematic sheets, it works. It's using my page template, and the template will go with the template for the project template. So what else can go wrong while creating project templates in this same theme, right? Well, if your project has any project local libraries and things like that, you could have a problem, again, if you put them onto another machine or share them with someone else, right? So if you're in your schematic editor and you open up and you say, I'm going to configure my paths, or not the paths, the libraries, when you configure the libraries, symbol libraries. If you have project-specific libraries, okay, these will have the same kind of problem if the file path name is not available on wherever this project template's used, okay? The same thing would happen for the footprint libraries that open up in the PC board editor over here. If you go in there and you say, give me the footprint libraries, and you say, I want a project-specific library over here, you could end up in trouble over here as well. Now, you can have project-specific footprint libraries and project-specific symbol libraries if those libraries are either global and well-known, and you know the consumer of your template has access to them, or if you put them right inside this template project with everything else, okay? Just like I did this WKS file, you can put a library in here, and you can say that I want my project-specific library path to include a library that's inside of my project. And then that library moves around along with everything else in this template. That may be difficult to maintain in the long term, but it's certainly an option. Just something to think about, right? Again, you have to be careful only because you have to think about what happens when KiCad renames all these files. Okay? When it, rather the project file, let's just take a dump at, look at the dump of that whole thing. If anything inside here, like a reference to this file here, is no longer valid after it's been copied and relocated to another directory on your system and then having all these other files renamed, you would have a problem, okay? But as long as that doesn't impact this, you're fine. So what does that mean? What that means is do not call your libraries, if you put them in a template project, do not call it JB template 1, library, blah, 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 blah. Why? Because the template copier will rename that library file when it makes the copy when the user uses the template, okay? You don't want it renamed. Why? Because inside this file in here, it will probably say something like project symbol library, user symbol library. There'll be some extra lines in here, equals some file name. Well, when you make a project out of this template, I'm pretty darn sure it's not smart enough to go inside the profile and the schematic file and the PCB file and go in there and rename everything accordingly inside those files. That I would not trust as far as anything. Not by somebody that couldn't even get the icons right in their selector. That's just not a good thing to expect that people will get that right, okay? All right, so this is how the project template system works and how you can use it to make copies of existing projects. Now that you know all this, let me show you one last thing and we'll come to closure on the template, the project template system. Now you know that I put all of my projects in this projects GitHub directory on my system, right? So on projects over here, and then you go to GitHub and so on. If I'm selecting a templates directory now, if I select this directory as my templates directory, think about that. What does it mean? That means every single project in here is now a template from the perspective of the template selector. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, before I hit open, notice one of the things in here, one of the directories in here is a library that has a bunch of library stuff in it. That's not even a project in any way, shape, or form. All right? These other ones are actually all projects, none of which actually have a meta directory, none of which therefore have icons or the info HTML files to go along with them. However, watch what happens in here. Now, I wouldn't count on this forever, but it's a little bit revealing based on the kind of mentality of how this thing works, the simplicity of what this template selector system does, due to the convention that it follows. This whole thing, find me a meta subdirectory and then find me the descriptions in there, all right? So what's happening here? Every single one of the directories you'll see in here, including this lib directory. I saw it up here a minute ago, right here. It says, hey, I cannot open project GitHub lib meta. Well, that's not even a project, so it wouldn't have it anyway. But it's looking for the icon ping, and it's looking for the info HTML file, neither of which are there. Then it comes down and says, oh, your preamp project doesn't have a meta ping and a info either, and so on. Every one of those projects comes down here and gives me an error. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to hit OK. I don't care. Look what we got up here. We have no icons, followed by clearly somebody not doing a very good job at handling an error situation. But what you really have in the blind, if you go to, I'm in the wrong window there. For every one of these things here, you have a icon that you can't see because it's broken, right? Breadboard power, preamp, yada, yada, yada. Now, I have no idea how they decided to sort these, which I can assure you is not alphabetical or numerical. It has no rhyme nor reason. But if you click on it, it's going to gripe. It says, I cannot open up lib meta. Okay, so this one here would be me trying to open up that lib directory as a template. What happens if I click the second one? It says I can't not find this any 5532 powered meta file, and so on. Let's just randomly click around here. Here's the breadboard power supply schematic. Remember that? Okay, I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to hit OK down here. So I'm blindly creating a new project, and I'm going to call XXXXX, which is going to be as if I had a valid template for my breadboard power supply right here. Okay? That's going to be a copy of this 2044 guy. And I'm going to save. Everyone's happy, right? Look at this. There's my breadboard power supply. Here's going to be the PC board for the breadboard power supply. You've seen this at great length from the beginning of the series. There's the PDF of the power supply. This is all the stuff that I pushed up on GitHub. It even has the CERN license and everything in there, okay? So guess what? If you keep your wits about you and understand how this is doing what it's doing in spite of all the error messages and the blind typing, this is a convenient way to just make a copy of a project, an abusive way to do that, all right? Of course, if you wanted to, every single time I create a project, if I put a meta info file in there, meta info HTML and a meta icon.ping, just as a standard practice every time I create a real project, and then I set my user template directory to where all my projects are, then every project I ever create is a template, and I don't have to navigate through them all blindly, obviously. And it makes it a real easy way for me to just say, hey, I want to make a new version of this thing. Boom. Using the technique I just showed you. So that's, quite honestly, I have abused the template system a couple of times to do exactly that. Just rename the files because I'm lazy and don't want to do it myself. All right? So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Bye.